for everyone. Welcome back to another enlightening episode of More Than a Circle webinar. This is Aykut, and today is a treat for all of us. We are privileged to have not one, but two special guests from New Look. We have Benji Portwin. He is the head of digital product and design, and Jennifer Rose, the digital product general manager. We are eager to delve into their insights and understand the intricacies of fashion retail specifically. So let's not keep our guests waiting any longer, and welcome Benji and Jennifer to the show. Welcome, guys. It's an honor to welcome you in More Than a Circle webinar. But I would like to start with your titles first. So both of you have really cool, but a bit of unusual titles. So could you please tell us a little bit about them? I mean, what are the areas you're responsible for? By the way, my honest opinion, Jennifer's title is way cooler than yours, Benji, but let's start with you, Benji. Well, what are the areas you're responsible for in New Look?
No, I totally agree. Jen's cooler than mine. And yeah, firstly, thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it. So yeah, me and Jen have got slightly odd titles. When I came into New Look, my predecessor had a slightly different title as well. I've learned from my previous experience that whether we like it or not, titles matter, not necessarily to me, but they do to other people, especially in large organizations. If you work in a 10-person one, maybe not so much, but if in New Look, which is sort of many thousands of people, it can be quite important. So what does it mean? It means I oversee all of our digital surfaces, I suppose. So our app, our website, also have my fingers in a few pies in store as well. And it just means that I look after both design, product, research, anything that falls underneath the digital sphere. Over to you, Jen.
Well, Benji, by the way, can we say that you are the CPO of the digital product?
Yeah, you could do. I'm definitely not the CPO of New Look, doesn't have one.
All right.
But I'm the most senior product person of the company.
I see.
So I report into I think called the Chief Customer Officer, which is kind of a bit more of an old school way of looking at it. Think about a company that had bricks and mortar stores and sold stuff. So she's great called Claire. So yeah, in terms of product, yeah, I get to say what goes and doesn't.
I see. And Jen?
Yeah, so again, before mine was an invented title. There wasn't this role before I joined back in January. Before me, there were two product leads, one on the website and one on the app side. And Benji, who joined New Look a couple of months before me, those two people ended up leaving, and it was kind of a bit of a moment of, well, hold on, why are we dividing our product by web and app? Our customers definitely don't divide products by web and app. They think it's the digital experience. So it's kind of where the role was born, to try and bring those two worlds closer together. And then if you think of Benji CPO-esque, then think of that role. My role was more of head of product. So slightly more tactical and on the ground, I'd say, with the product managers. So working with all of the product managers we have within the different teams that are all in kind of different stages of maturity and different challenges that they're facing. Making sure that they've all got some kind of strategy that they're all pointing towards versus everyone going off in different directions.
I see. Yeah. And you both have two common things. First of all, both of you are product leaders, and you came from product manager background. And another thing is you are coming from health tech industry to the fashion e-commerce. So could you tell us about the journey from product management to become a product leader, from health tech to fashion retail? So Jen, maybe we can start with you now.
Yeah, sure. So my product experience before New Look was very much startup, scale up world. Yeah. So the first time I was in product, I joined a startup of 4 people. So it's very much people running around trying to do anything they can to get product market fit in that early stage part. From there, moved on to Accurex, which is the health tech that both worked at. And that was 30 people that grew into 200, 250 by the time I left. So that was very much more of a scale up. But both of them had that greenfield aspect of product and how we do product at those companies. to very much building out our own structures and rhythm of product and all those fun things. And for me, there was a kind of, okay, I know how to do that. I know how to set up things from scratch. But what happens when you've got a legacy older company who's trying to become more product led and go through that transformation, more brownfield, as much as that isn't the nicest of phrases, but how do you change what's already there and change existing structures and processes to become that way? So that was really, as well as working with Benji again, that was a big motivation for me to go into ecom, new sector, and also a kind of, definitely new environment for product and what product means to the company as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big challenge, especially when you move into the bigger companies. It's always a challenge to change people's mind about what the product is, what the feature is, what the experience is. All these definitions should change. Benji, how about you?
Yeah, I'd say I kind of sleepwalked into a transformation, if I'm honest. I wouldn't say I was dying to do a transformation. I used to work in that area many, many years ago before I got into startups. I did it for the government. I more wanted a slight break from startup world for a little while, something a bit more stable. Hasn't necessarily turned to be exactly that. In terms of the difference between healthcare and our world, yeah, of course, it's completely different in terms of what we're talking about every day. I always talk about what's discussed at lunch. There's a lot about a company. And so, yeah, instead of talking about saving the NHS, we are talking about dresses and summer fashion and things like that. But I'd say that in terms of the product managers we have, it's a very similar skill set. I've done product in a variety of companies now. I really don't mind when we hire people where they come from. I think you can learn the industry far quicker than you can learn how to be a product manager. So when we're hiring PMs, we don't mind. It's a bonus, but I care more about, do you think about product the way we think about it? Do you think about people the way that we care about them? Are you able to both introspect to the team and also look outwards? End of the day.
I see. I mean, if you list these similarities between this Accurex and New Look, for example, from the product manager's eyes, what would you put in that list? I mean, what are the key similarities? Because from my point of view, I have a SaaS background. I have managed mobile products, mobile applications, websites, etc. But especially for the fashion retail, the product sometimes is actually the product that you wear, right? It's not the mobile application, it's not the website, but it's the shirt, like T-shirt. So it's a bit challenging. So what are the similarities? What are the key differences from that sense? And maybe we can also talk about key skills that any product managers who are willing to join this fashion e-commerce. What are these key skills for you when you hire someone? Benji, we can start
first,
with
Jonah,
you.
do you want me to?
Go.
Yeah, I mean, you're entirely right. So the product is the dresses, the shoes, the items we are selling, and we should never get too far away from that in our company. And it's not too hard to remember that because our floors are literally full of them everywhere around you go. And to remind yourself, and in many ways, we work in sales, right? And I've worked in sales in my life. I'm not ashamed of that. I think it's a really important thing to keep really front and center. So the good points of that is you're given a lot more autonomy, I would say, than you are in a company where it's a software product. And that is the product. The CEO is not involved in what we're doing. There's much more of the CEO's unsurprisingly comes from the product dresses clothes background, buying merchandising background. So that's a positive. I'd say the negative is that at times that means you're almost seen as a cost center if you're not careful.
Oh.
And certainly one of the things that I've had to do an awful lot more of than I was expecting, and in some ways wanted to, is to get really deep into the finances of the company and really deep into how we make those decisions at top level, because the money being spent on an iOS developer is up for competition with the same money being used to fix an air conditioning system in a store, right? And that's a very different conversation to should we hire an iOS dev or a user researcher? And so I spent a lot more time in spreadsheets and a lot more time becoming very comfortable with financial modeling and understanding of EBITDA and our overall projections on a 5-year plan for the company. So that's been a very different journey, I'd say. Jen, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there's definitely the similarities are that you still have, especially as we're working in digital. Yes, there's different jobs to be done. There's different things, and as you say, the products are the shirts. But really, we're trying to create great customer experiences, and that's whether or not you're doing that for NHS staff or you're doing that for women who want to go and find a summer wedding outfit. So I think it's still that trying to create a really great experience at the end of the day. And as Benji said, that can be quite challenging when there's all of the more being finance led in the company, and remembering that is what we're doing and putting the customer first. I think some of the real differences have been around, and I think this is maybe an e-com space of and retail space, is how much kind of external factors can affect your data. And that happens a lot more here than it did in health tech, where you've got, okay, half term, we know we're going to see a big dip in users, or the week where doctors all change their rotations. Cool, that's going to be chaos, and we probably shouldn't take data from this week as given. But actually, that's every week in retail, and it can be the weather, for example. And that's, again, as Ben says about what we talk about at lunch, we talk about the weather a lot because it affects things a lot in retail. And in fashion, and the September heat wave was not good for us because we had our autumn stock ready. So all of those things make it really hard. And I think in terms of skills and mindsets for PMs, being able to be comfortable in that data and how we're going to measure success of the thing we're doing, that's something that Benji and I talk about quite a lot. Like, how do we get a good data-driven way of doing product, where we're able to look at, well, is it better to look at this time last year to this year? Is that a better measure? Or is it last 3 months, these 3 months, and what are the factors that might influence it, whether or not they're good measures or not? But that's definitely a big difference I've noticed from more SaaS, like health tech, into retail.
I see. I mean, that brings another thing to my mind, because like with this sort of organization, you have also different teams that you don't have in SaaS businesses, health tech, or any software companies, like merchandising team. I mean, they are big, they are huge. Most of the time, they are leading the topic. So for product managers, I always feel like we are kind of enablers. So we need to enable every team, whether it could be design team, engineering team, marketing team, sales team, or in your scenario, merchandising team. For that, like, for providing a collaboration or communication between these cross-functional teams, do you use any specific frameworks or like methodologies? It could be defined by you, or like it could be just a common one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think product managers are enablers, but we're also bad cop. I think it's really important that we don't get too far away from that, to be honest. And I think when we interview people for more senior product manager roles, that's specifically what we kind of look for. Like, have you had times when you got it wrong? Have you had times when you said no too much, or have you trod that line very carefully? I'd say at New Look, when we walked in the door, me and Jen, there's a lot of ambiguity around who was in a team, what the team's accountability was, etc. So we've had to be way more bad cop than I've had in my career before. I've had to be way more direct than I've had in my career before. I've had to say no, not in a like maybe next week type normal way, as in like a no, we aren't doing that type way, to create enough cloud cover for the product managers to actually own their own roadmaps, which before was a real challenge. So I think first of all was being a bit over the top to try and create a bit of that space, because the machine was a little bit broken, to be honest. Stuff wasn't getting through our system, and we had to create that kind of no more requests, no more ideas. We can't even do the stuff we've got in our backlogs right now, and it's just breaking us. Once we had that going, then we can start to collaboration with other teams. And most of the work that we did was actually around aligning upon metrics, to be perfectly honest. So we've got an e-commerce department that works really, really closely with our team. Before, they weren't working necessarily to the same metrics, so there might be conflict there. So it's okay. Well, what are you working towards? Okay, well, conversion and retention. We care most about those things. Okay, well, who are the conversion teams? Right, how close are they speaking? Who are the retention teams? Like I said, how are they measuring it? Is it the same way of measuring it? That's what Jen said. Really hard to know whether we're actually winning or losing sometimes, because the market forces are so massive. Whether it be cost of living crisis, increase in the cost of goods, like it's actually really hard to know whether or not we're actually doing the right stuff. Now, of course, we try an A/B test, and of course, we want to improve how we do holdout groups. But even then, it's really challenging to know whether the thing we've done actually is better. And sometimes you simply can't A/B test because the product you're building is not it's not possible. It's just really quite complicated. So, with all those relationships, it's very much become a softly, what are you trying to achieve? How can we help you? But it has to be, I think, also a slight hard edge to it, which is we are going to keep moving as fast as we can, and we're going to over communicate what we're doing, but we're not going to look for sign off anymore. And we're going to keep going down this path, and being slightly over the top. We have the power to click the button that ships the product. So please come on the journey with us, but it's not going to take us 6 months to make a decision.
No, I see. Jenny, do you want to add anything to that?
The only thing I'll add as well is, you spoke about kind of talking with the merch teams and these different things. The things we've tried to do is make sure if there's a product team going after a specific thing, that actually there's a real need for a specific part of the business to be really involved, then we're trialing, embedding those people into the teams. So it's not so much that you go and liaise with a team that's got, as you said, sometimes completely different goals, but actually you've got a team looking at post-purchase journeys and what happens after you buy something. Well, actually they need to be able to change things further up the chain, and like buying, merchandise and design. Okay, well, how can we get people who have those expertise in a team? And so, ideally every team can work towards their goal autonomously. So not just talking to and having those regular touch points or whatever, but actually let's get someone embedded in the team full time so that it's their goal as well. So it's definitely, I'd say, a kind of a methodology or a framework we've brought with us is kind of be in the team if you're doing the team's work and helping towards the team's goal.
Sometimes it reminds me like juggling, to just get the balls and all the teams. And I am using yes, but instead of no sometimes, and it's also useful. Just to say that. Jennifer, I have another question for you, because like you said that, for example, even the weather condition affects what you do on the product side. So you have tons of brick and mortar stores, you got tons of customer feedbacks, and they're experiencing different parts of the product itself. I mean, you said that it's whole digital experience with web, app, etc. And people are not dividing products into web, app, etc. But the thing is, like, offline is also embedded in that product experience. So with all these customer behaviors and preferences, both in brick and mortar store and the digital gateways, like how you turn these into a solid product strategy, especially for the fashion retail? Because, like, for example, if I go to new look brick and mortar store and had a bad experience, would it affect your product strategy as well? If you just elaborate on that, that would be awesome, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Great question. I think there's two parts to it. I think one is, as Benji's kind of alluded to, what we walked into, and two is kind of where we want to go from here, I would say. So we walked into a machine that wasn't really working, as Benji said, and that kind of requests getting pushed into backlogs, and very much a buy over build mentality, which I think is relatively common in kind of bigger corporations as well. So I think that was what we walked into, and what we wanted to do was move that into a more product-led, teams own their own metrics, their own destinies, and they can choose what initiatives they help to drive that. So the first thing we did, and again, Benji's already mentioned this, is align on those key metrics that we cared about. So one of the first things Benji and I sat down to do together when I joined was create a product strategy. And that wasn't so much around look at these amazing experiences or those pieces. At the beginning, it was how are we going to get the machine to work, and then what metrics do we care about? So one of those was shipping more regularly. When we came in, the machine was shipping, I mean, on the website once every 8 weeks or so was like
I guess I remember these dates.
Yeah. So, you know, that was I thought someone was kidding when I first heard that when I walked in, because that is the opposite of the startup world, right? Like that's too much time for an idea. So that was what we focused on first before we focused on any consumer behavior or anything like that. So, you know, it's been nice to see that the effort we put in there has paid off, and we are shipping more regularly, and that is something that's working. And then looking at those metrics, as Benji mentioned, conversion and retention. So let's align all of our stakeholders. Let's align people in the business and the merchandising and customer and e-com around those metrics. And then it becomes a bit easier for those prioritizations, because, you know, we're all agreed that we want to try and move this thing, and the conversation becomes around levels of confidence and what do we have in the backlog and what do we think are going to help us drive towards increasing those metrics. So that I'd say is the first thing we did. Now we're starting to see that pay off. I think the next part becomes more of okay, how do we get more customer discovery into our product process, and how do we start to learn more about those consumer behaviors and learn which ones we want to prioritize and how the store fits into it as well. So we've hired a user researcher, which is great, and also working with PMs and designers on how do we do more of that. We've got customers going into stores every day, and at the moment, unfortunately, we don't talk to them really that much. And that's something that we want to look at as the next stage of product at New Look, is how do those customers feel? How do we know exactly what our customers care about?
Yeah, even having some focus groups might really help, right? To understand.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at doing hack, you know, lab days, and what can we do and get people into the office and, you know, give them vouchers, offers off, you know, come and let's let people watch what it's like for a customer to navigate our website, and you know, shared experience of someone getting really stuck and everyone going, oh no, I can't believe this, we need to go and fix this, you know, like it's such a powerful thing to see, to have your whole team on board for that. So it's definitely what we want to try and do more of.
Sometimes, I mean, we are using Full Story to check user sessions, and sometimes like we had a virtual teams getting together and watching Full Story sessions, and sometimes it's really heartbreaking, you know, that just seeing, oh, come on, you shouldn't put it on that button.
You're like, oh no. So lots more stuff.
On top of that, Benji, I have a question for you, because like, yes, you are working with an amazing product team. They want to innovate. They want to create new stuff. They start to like, they make the machine running, you know, they launch new stuff every week maybe. But New Look is a like multi-million business, right? And it should be stable, like it should be reliable. So you have a lot of maintenance jobs, which are sometimes boring. So how do you balance this, like product maintenance versus innovation, and this like having happy product managers and having product managers? Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, apart from one of our teams takes the major brunt of that work. It's not a maintenance team, but a lot of the maintenance comes to them. They're quite a big team. They're kind of really a few teams in one. So apart from that team, I'd say this isn't the biggest issue we have. If I'm honest, like the work we're doing isn't so risky that it's creating that much debt to that much maintenance.
I see.
Like in our teams that are working in iOS and Android, there's not that much required. There's a couple of people whose full-time job it is as platform leads for those areas to look at it and try and help prioritize that with our teams. But compared to other places I've worked, where like that burden of maintenance is really a constant conversation, and you get into the ratios, right? Like how much per month, per sprint should we be spending on maintenance versus new work, and that's a real constant balancing act. And you normally agree about 25%, right, or something around that mark. I'd say apart from this one team, a lot of our teams really are either greenfield, so building a new website, replatforming, or working on iOS and Android, where this isn't quite so much of that burden, or even working in parts of the business. We've got teams looking at our returns rate, teams looking at our in-store experience, which are, again, reasonably greenfield because there haven't been teams doing that before. So we're almost too early in the journey to have that as a major problem in some regards. Having said that, I think the one team that does wear it for everyone else, we're looking to try and split that team to make it a bit easier. So there's not multiple. If you've ever got multiple work streams in one team for a long period of time, like you've really got multiple teams, and it's looking at how to do that kind of split. I wouldn't say that splitting teams is a thing you look for quite used to doing. That's also another education journey and looking at the second and third order effects of doing that. But no, it's slightly different on the places we've worked. I don't know what you think, Jen.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's the normal amount as we go through, and sometimes we're moving a bit faster and consciously accruing some of that tech debt, and some of that isn't really tech debt. It's investments more that we want to put on, and how do we make it faster for developers to do what it is? How do they make their jobs easier? All of that fun. There's that typical balance, but yeah, I'd agree with Benji. It's lighter.
I see. In that regard, I mean, do you have any teams that you have found in another vertical, for example, in Aykut, that you apply now in New Look that works better on this?
Or in kind of maintenance specifically, or in general?
Not maintenance, because it's most of our relationship with engineering teams, right? The product delivery stuff. Maintenance is a part of product delivery cycle, maybe. So regarding that product delivery, I mean, do you have any things that you found in healthcare and now you're applying fashion retail and it works like a charm?
There's a couple that I'll say, and then I'll let Benji chip in as well. I think the first one is treating kind of product and tech as one team and having really strong bonds with your peers and your leads in the engineering side. We can't do what we need to without each other, and making sure that we're building really great ways of working, and that we do see it as one team with a goal. That's something that definitely, as soon as Benji and I joined, we were like, cool, who are the people we need to go and talk to on the tech side? This isn't a digital and tech, this is us working together in those product teams. And then the second one, which is probably something I've definitely learned and picked up more from Benji, is just it sounds really simple, but the importance of writing down what you're doing and sharing that thing. Bigger companies can have such a meeting first culture, which means that information very much gets shared synchronously, and that's it. But I think what we have brought with us that worked even at a startup level or scale up level with that many people becomes even more important of, hey, we care about these things, or this thing's going to change, or this is what we mean by a team. And making sure those documents and those shared ways of sharing what we're changing. And as Benji said, we have walked into a transformation. We are changing things, and giving
it's a great journey
and chip in. But I don't know about you, Benji.
Yeah, definitely the two that Jen's mentioned. So leadership in pairs, like the pairing of the tech lead and the PM, that's still a work in progress at Newlook, but we've got it working really well at AccurX. And then I'd say a few other things. One is, I said earlier, who's in the team, and who are those leaders? What are the accountabilities of different people? Ambiguity kills speed, fact. So if the PM is not really sure why this person's at their stand-up, that creates all kinds of second and third order effects that just kills speed. And the other sort of smaller ones I would say is having all the work of your team on the same board. Again, that's still a work in progress at Newlook. But I don't care if you've got a researcher, an operations person, a data scientist, whoever's in your team, having all of that displayed on the same board and planning and stand-up looking at the same board of all of that work, I found to be incredibly important. And at times there's resistance to it. So, well, it's not all relevant to me, but that's a really myopic view of the world. And it means you almost can create silos even within a single small unit of a team if you don't have that. And it means the work needs to be scoped slightly differently. I think that's really important. And then it's just the standard stuff that all teams need to do, like running good retros. The smallest things at Newlook have been quite hard to implement, actually. Like not using Miro for a retro, use a tool that hides what people are writing to get less groupthink early on. Almost the whole principle of why you use post-it notes seems to be forgotten in the move to digital worlds. Those kind of things have a really big impact on teams. And yeah, less likely to build bonds, less likely to have cameras turned on, all the stuff you do in a hybrid world. And actually, to be honest, me and Jez spend an awful lot of time on quite mundane things like making sure there's good meeting equipment so teams can have a planning session that works over a hangout effectively. Or when the team wants to come in for a day, making sure there's a room for them to use. There's some stuff we kind of took for granted, I would say, in startup world. That focus on collaboration is at the heart of all startups. That's not the case in big organizations. And trying to help explain that, as Jen said, a lot of it via quite short written documents. Like we had to write a document, a 4-page document explaining why Slack was useful and what the difference between Slack and email is, to try and help explain the difference between open communication and closed communication. What Jen's there talking about, like meeting rooms, etc. That was things I just taken for granted in my life. I had to go back round on it and remind myself why that way of working had become the norm in younger companies, but never actually managed to hit older companies.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Guys, I was going to ask the future of e-commerce, but we don't have any time left. And I think all of our listeners can think about generative AI, artificial intelligence, like AR, visual reality, etc. And everyone got bored already. And this takes us to the end of our conversation with you. I think it was a fascinating webinar. I learned from you, and it makes me so happy. And before we wrap up, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to our guests for sharing their knowledge, their experiences. Thank you for being such an awesome guest. By the way, I will keep ambiguity kills speed sentence with me from today. I think that was a great part. And to our listeners, I hope you found this episode as inspiring, as informative and enlightening as I did. And finally, like if you have any questions, feedbacks, comments, please let us know. We love to learn from feedback. We love to it helps us to improve. That's the key thing. And thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay inspired, stay curious. Goodbye for now. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.